All right, so as I had promised, we are gonna get into some of the things. This is kind of the backbone of your business, right? The business of your business, to make sure that you're staying on track and keeping engaged with the properties the way that they need to be within the contract. So a good system shortens the road to the goal. So we want you to, obviously, when you have a loop, if first, when you are naming it for the buyer, right, because you do not have a property yet, you label them as buyer and you label their name. Then once they have found the property, switch it over to the name of the property. You can click on the title and change the title to the name of the property so that we are aware that now there is a property that they've made an offer on. Also important, you can see the different look, right? It's going to be transitioning to the new look. So the old version, how it looked, and then what the new version looks like. It is so important that you change the status of your loop. When you have a contract and it is ratified, signed by all parties, change the status and make sure you put in what the purchase price is and when the closing date is. That's important for us because we use that information into our system, and that helps us to get our business organized and the checks and balances of what we have going on. If something changes where the closing date changes, make sure you're changing it in there, but it doesn't give us any alerts. It doesn't let me know, say, hey, Nancy changed the closing date on something, or hey, Cheryl changed the closing date. It doesn't let me know. So how I notify you when you have that closing disbursement and I send you a note through there saying, hey, congratulations, please sign off on your closing disbursement. If there is some kind of a change like that, and it's going to be important for us as a business, just for you as a business to know, please send a note to us to let us know that. So if there's something that is missed, we won't miss it because there'll be a note that is caught through there. Okay, so that is just helping us to help you and to help our business move forward. So again, now we talk about the folders and the actual documents that are in your folders. Now, if I'm going into the documents to review the contracts and review the addendums and see what's going on, and my time is limited, we know that I've got to get a lot done in a short amount of time. If I have to go through the folders and click through every one to try and find out what I am looking for, that is not a good use of my time. It's important for you, when you put a document in there, that you name it what it is and you ensure that you have all the documents that are needed in that loop, because it is important for you as a business and for us as a business. If we were ever to get audited, we need to make sure that all the documents are labeled and every document is uploaded as it needs to be. And as we're going to be going through the rules, you're going to see why and how important it is. You've got to use the mandatory listing questionnaires, right? There was a time where we were being really good with it, and now we just kind of need a friendly reminder, because this helps the office staff know what we need to do to help get your listing ready for the market. It lets us know what kind of sign that you need to have for that property. It lets us know when you want the sign to be placed for that property. If we're doing photos of those properties, it lets us know what date and time we need to do the listing photos based on when the property is going to have sunlight on the front of the property, so that we can make sure that we highlight it in the best way. And then it lets us know if you want a virtual tour associated with it, if the property is open for open houses. So when we send our emails out to the team saying, hey, these are the properties available, we know that yours can be on the list. That's important for you and for your clients, because know that we're all here to help you get your home sold. So it's important for you to communicate with us what it is that we can and cannot do with that property to help you in the best way that we can. Communication is key. Really, that's what it comes down to. Notify us when you have a price adjustment. Notify us when your closing date changes. And I should say price adjustment or commission adjustment. Okay, sometimes there are compensations or things that have to be negotiated along the way. Maybe you and the other agent negotiate on something to help the client. Just make sure you let us know. And notify us if your listing is terminated. That is few and far between, but again, it's important that we know what is going on. Email signatures. You never get a second chance to make a first impression, and we want to make sure that we're making the best first impression for you. So you have your email signature in Gmail, and then you also have a Paragon email signature. So if you don't have a Paragon email signature that looks like you and looks like Berkshire Hathaway Professional, get with us so that we can add that to your profile, so that when you're sending things out through the Collab Center or emails through Paragon, it looks as professional as if it was through any other marketing that we send to them or any emails that you're sending to them. And then we get into Zillow, right? The big bad Z word. Okay, we all have to live with it, and we want to embrace and engage what it is that we have. Okay, so make sure the information that you have associated on those sites are correct. Make sure the company that you're associated with is correct. These are old ones. I'm not saying these are new now, but I'm just saying as we were going through transitions, you just need to make sure that the company that you're with is reflected in the information that is there. Okay, so this is everybody's homework to go through your profiles and look and see how are you presenting yourself to the market. Is it correct or is it not correct? Okay, so now I want to do a little baby mini recap of the 2026 market outlook, because it's been a little bit since we've had a meeting, and I just want to keep everybody engaged of what is really happening right now. So this is a reminder from our last meeting. And nationally, we continue to see interest rates stabilizing, right? We see the inventory continuing to rebuild, and we are seeing buyer activity returning to the market. But we see them in a more thoughtful and intentional way, right? The urgency we saw over the past few years has settled. And now what we're seeing is a market driven by planning, by purpose, and value. This shift is a reset, and resets tend to favor those agents that are prepared for these type of markets. This environment continues to reward professionalism, preparation, and skill. That's in any kind of business. Professionalism, preparation, and skill will always reign supreme. Pricing strategy matters, right? You can't be shooting for the moon, because the buyers that would maybe want to see that and buy that home aren't going to see it because it's not in the price range that it needs to be. Communication matters more now than ever, right? Things aren't selling in a day or two. So you need to stay engaged with your clients at least once a week to keep them engaged with what's going on. Any new properties that have come on the market, anything that has gone pending, what kind of feedback you're getting, any marketing that you're doing, or open houses or emails. What are you doing to help them? Communication matters, and managing expectations matter, right? The worst thing we could ever do is overpromise and underdeliver. We always want to be honest, and we want to help them, put their best foot forward, but in an honest, earnest way. Clients are now looking for guidance and confidence in their decisions, and the agents who can provide that are the ones that are standing out in today's market. And looking at one of the most important things in our market, right? We know that we do not sell based on what's happening nationally. We sell locally. And when you look at South Carolina on the map, year over year, appreciation, this was as of third quarter 2025, the growth was up 4%. Now that's higher than the national average of 2.3%. That's good for our market, right? We have been an affordable market for a long time. And now, even as the prices of our market are elevating, it's still quote unquote affordable based on the rest of the country. So what does it mean? It's good news, right? Our market is in demand and continuing to grow in demand. Little pockets of our community too. Conway just got the #1 small town by HGTV, right? People watch TV. People pay attention to those things. People want to feel and live in a community that feels like them. So people are moving here for the lifestyle, right? We need to convey that to the community. People are moving here for the affordability. They're moving here for the lower taxes, the climate, the quality of life. Retirees are coming. Remote workers are still relocating, right? Families are still choosing this area intentionally. The demand has not disappeared. It has simply become more selective. So we need to ask the right questions to get the right answers. So which means that the opportunity has not gone away. It is just simply shifted. We have to be open and transparent and clear with our offerings, which are abundant. So we know that inventory is on the rise, not just nationally, but locally too. So these are the moments when the cream again will rise to the top. Why? Because you're a knowledgeable advisor. You know what the market looks like. You know how many homes have been selling. You know what's on the market. You know how many price adjustments have been made. So do we want to be the one who has to make multiple price adjustments to get to closing, or do we just want to get there sooner rather than later? That's a question that we can ask them. This is the moment where you step into the role as an advisor, right? Not just an agent, where your voice carries weight for them because they are looking to you for advice and they are looking for you to be knowledgeable and educated on what you're talking about. And your knowledge creates confidence and your consistency builds trust with them. So again, lean in now, stay visible, stay informed, stay connected. Those are going to be the ones that own the next chapter of this market. So we know that in our local market, homes are selling, buyers are buying, sellers are making moves. Okay. We just know that they are being more thoughtful. All right. So now let us get into the meat of this meeting. Okay. And this is really, really important because this is how we are portraying ourselves to the market with other agents and with the public. And we always want to make sure that we are transparent and guiding people in an honest and fair way. So this presentation is going to be important. It is going to review the rules that are now in effect, right? They had sent the email on the 29th and they said the rules were in effect on the 1st. So they gave you 2 days to review this. I really think the true enforcement is not going to be until the beginning of March, but we want to make sure that we're doing the right things. And for the most part, we are. There are just some tweaks that have been added. So the focus is going to be on the timelines, the required actions, and the enforcement changes. So internal remedies for MLS rules violations. Just to remind you, it is a fine up to $5,000. That's a chunk of change. It could result in suspension of MLS privileges. It could result in termination of MLS privileges. And there could be specific violations and fines on separate summaries that you are allowed a certain number in a given period of time. Otherwise, you could be flagged. Judicial remedies for data misappropriation and copyright infringement, right? That means using somebody's photos that are not yours on your listing. Statutory damages range now from $750 to $30,000. It used to be $250. They've tripled it now to $750. Yeah. So it's very important that we just stay engaged. So now, and those fines can go up to $150,000 if the infringement was willful. Okay, so these are big dollars. This is big time. So we need to make sure that we're taking these things seriously because they could be costly. Okay, so I'm happy I've got your attention now. And just know that in the recap as well, again, all of the rules are going to be included. And it is vital for everybody to read through those at least 2 times to remind you, right? We do it when we first begin. We're first putting listings in. We understand the rules of the engagement and how we're supposed to do things. But over time, little things can slip. So it is important that we stay engaged. So let's start with the clear cooperation policy, right? So the requirement here is straightforward. Once a listing is publicly marketed, the listing broker must submit that property to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants within 1 business day. So what does that mean? It just means that the listing must be active in the MLS, right? If you send anything out, public marketing, right, includes yard signs, flyers, displayed in windows, marketing on public-facing websites, brokerage websites, email blast, multi-brokerage sharing networks, and apps that are available to the general public. Okay, now this is not something that we're really engaging in, right? We understand that the rule is 24 hours of public marketing. The furthest we have gone in something, this was just in reference to putting a sign in the yard the day before it was going live on the market. Okay, so again, the easiest way to remember this is simple. If the public can see it, the MLS must see it. And this must happen within 1 business day. So this rule is really about maintaining a level playing field, right? And ensuring listings are exposed to the full marketplace once they're publicly marketed. Now we go into section 1.4. This is listing entry requirements, okay? So the current requirement is that listings must be entered into the MLS within 3 business days after obtaining all required seller signatures. So that means once you have all of the signatures, you have to start putting the property on MLS. That timeline has not changed, but it is important to continue treating that as a firm deadline, okay? Another change in the listing entry requirements, the primary photo must represent at least 51% of the subject property, right? So this is more challenging when you have condos and townhomes and things like that. You have to pay attention. It always has to be the front of the property. And as a reminder, branding or compensation references are not permitted anywhere in the listing. That's just a reminder because they put these rules in because there are people that have broken those rules. I know that nobody in this office has done anything like that, but again, these are the breadcrumbs of what has happened. So we have to make sure that we're staying engaged. People could maybe have their sign in the photo, right? The property sign in the photo. You don't realize it, but it has the company and it has the phone number in there. So you're branding yourself on all those public facing websites on everybody else's site, all the other agents as well. And that's not playing fair. Again, that's not something we do, but that could be an accident that could take place. Okay. So the change in reference to branding and compensation, the change in this section really is relating to virtual staging, right? This is something that we have been doing. So there are now specific requirements around virtually staged images that are presented. Each virtually staged image must clearly be labeled as virtually staged with a watermark, right? So they have the labels that say that I say to put virtual staging, but now it has to be a watermark. And the public remarks must include a disclosure stating that some images have been virtually staged. Again, the intent here is transparency, making sure that buyers understand what is real and what has been digitally enhanced before they walk into the property. And I should just be clear that the changes are just based on putting furnishings in a property, right? Putting a plant in the corner, putting a rug on the floor, putting art on the wall. We're not changing the colors of anything. We're not changing the color of the grass, right? Because that is not a valid representation and an honest representation of what the property looks like at that time. So they're wanting there to be transparency, right? And what are the penalties? The first violation is $250. That's a chunk. Your second violation is $1,000, and third and any subsequent violations, $2,500. No, thank you. Okay. We're getting into section 1.9, multiple listing options for sellers. Okay, so this section addresses office exclusive listings and delayed marketing listings, right? The current requirement is that if a seller chooses either of these options, there must be a seller signed certification acknowledging that they understand that they are reducing or delaying their exposure to the marketplace. The important part to remember is that if the property is publicly marketed in any way, right, then we go back to the previous rule. the listing must be entered into MLS within 1 business day, regardless of the original listing choice. So if somebody is, wanting to just allow you to have the property, the office to have the property, an office exclusive, and not have it marketed online, then that means it's not marketed. That means we're not sending emails internally to each other. That means we can talk about it. Okay, but you can't market it in any way. As soon as you market it in any way within 1 business day, it has to be up on the public site. Okay, so what is changing here is that the seller acknowledgement requirement has been strengthened. Okay, the signed acknowledgement must now be submitted to the MLS. This ensures that there is clear documentation that the seller understood the marketing decision and made that choice knowingly. And the purpose of this documentation, again, is transparency, making sure that the seller's instructions are clear and properly recorded. And I have an image here to just show you where you would submit the document stating that they've asked for the property to be done exclusively internally and not marketed publicly in any way. When you're in Paragon, you go to the top and you click on My Links. And when you click on My Links, you're going to get a list of all the links. And if you look probably 3/4 of the way down, it says CC MLS document submission form. It says form. I think it should be forum, but that's where you would submit that document in regards to a property that is not wanting to be publicly marketed online. But again, the rule still states that within 3 business days of you having all signatures signed, you have to still start putting it in MLS. It just means that it's not going to be made active and marketed publicly. Section 1.12, listing status changes. The requirement here focuses on timing and accuracy of updates in MLS. Any change to a listing, whether it's the price, the terms, or other changes in the listing agreement, must be entered into the MLS within 3 business days after receiving authorization from the seller. Once a residential property goes under contract, the listing status must be changed to pending within 3 business days of the ratified contract. The only exemption for that is commercial listings. If a commercial listing has gone under contract, it still may remain in the active status after going under contract, but only if the words under contract appear as the first sentence in the agent remarks section. The goal, again, is simple: keeping MLS data accurate and current so that other agents and the public understand the true status of the property, right? We know how important it is for us to know if the status on a property has changed. Anytime, any given time of day, we're trying to do a comprehensive market analysis of a property. And we base it off of what's sold, what's pending, what's active, and we need accurate information to help us serve the public right. So again, it's to protect all of us. Now we're looking at 1.13. These are hold, don't show requirements. And again, these aren't issues that we have ever dealt with, but you can see that some people were trying to kind of bend the rules and do things their way to try and get around it. So we know that the hold, don't show is intended for temporary situations, right? Repairs that need to be done or a sickness. Examples include a seller illness, temporary repairs, short-term access issues where the property can't be shown for a limited period of time. Maybe there's family that's coming in town for a week or 2. It is not intended for market timing, pre-marketing, right? Avoiding days on the market or delaying showings while the property is being marketed publicly. No games. The current requirement is that a listing must be in active status for a minimum of 3 business days before it can be moved into the hold status. Once it is placed in the hold status, the initial hold period is limited to 30 days. And then 1 additional 30-day extension is allowed, but only with MLS approval obtained before the first 30 days expire. So if there is something, an extended time that is needed, you need to talk to MLS and make sure that everybody's in alignment before that first 30 days expires. If the listing remains in the hold status beyond 30 days without approval, you guessed it, daily fines begin. If the listing remains in hold status beyond 60 total days, continued daily fines apply until the status is corrected. So the rule itself did not change the purpose of the hold status, but the revision clarified the enforcement. So a listing cannot go directly from putting it on MLS to in a hold don't show before it even hits the market, right? It has to be active first for 3 days before it can be transitioned to that status. The hold status cannot be used as a substitute for coming soon, delayed marketing, or off-market marketing. The key change here is clarity. There are now defined time limits, required approval for extensions, and automatic daily fines once those limits are exceeded. The goal was to, again, remove any ambiguity around how long a property could remain in a hold status. Section 1.15, relisting withdrawn properties. Right? This is important to us because there are times where we maybe need to be strategic, but we still have to follow the rules of engagement. Okay, so the current requirement is that if a listing is withdrawn and then reactivated within 30 days, it must remain the same MLS number. A new listing is only allowed once the property has been withdrawn for more than 30 days. Okay, the purpose of this rule is to prevent artificial resetting of days on the market, right? Manipulation of listing history and misrepresentation of how long a property has actually been exposed to the market. MLS history is intended to accurately reflect the total time a property has been offered for sale. Examples of violations would include withdrawing a listing and immediately re-entering it as a new listing. Withdrawing a listing to solely reset days on the market, or entering duplicate listings to create the appearance of a new property. If this occurs and is identified by MLS, the listings may be merged, the days on the market may be recalculated, and the fines may be assessed under MLS violation procedures. From a practical standpoint, when withdrawing a listing, confirm the seller's intent to truly remove the property from the market. Understand that if the property is reactivated within 30 days on the market, those days on the market continue. And it's important not to promise a fresh start unless that 30-day withdrawal period has actually been met. Okay. Section 2.5, reporting sales to the MLS. This is short and sweet, right? This is just dealing with the timing of reporting status changes and closed transactions to ensure, again, the MLS data stays accurate and current, because that helps us when we are trying to navigate the market and price things appropriately. The current requirement is that all status changes must be reported within 3 business days of the change occurring. That includes changes as moving a property to pending or making other status updates. So again, within 3 business days of that change occurring. Once a property has closed, the listing must be updated to close status within 5 business days of the closing date. Okay, the purpose again is consistency and accuracy, right? We have agents, appraisers, and consumers that rely on the data being current. So timely reporting is required to maintain accurate market information and comparable sales data. Section 2.11, okay, this is about written buyer agency agreements, right? This was discussed last year, but it's just getting written into the rules this year, okay? But we know that this is how we have always done our business, and this is how it needs to be done now. But now these are the rules, right? So this is an entirely new section. It is one of the most important operational changes. A written buyer agency agreement is now required prior to touring any property. That means before showings take place, the agreement must be already signed. This agreement must include how compensation will be determined, right? A defined compensation amount or method, a cap stating that the compensation cannot exceed what is agreed to, and a clear statement that commissions are negotiable. When we're putting that buyer's agency agreement, right? When you're in that section, it's the maximum that you can receive. This is the maximum. You can potentially do less, okay? And that is to be discussed and negotiated if needed, but you can't go higher than that. So really where this occurs the most often is in new construction, when they're offering bonuses and things of those sorts. If a bonus is offered and you did not state that you can receive a bonus up to 3%, then you're not getting that bonus unless the buyer agrees to allow you to have that. And you can explain in writing why you deserve to have that bonus, what you have done that provides you that. We don't want to be doing that. We just want to set the rules up front, and then we can do what we need to along the way to help our clients, because really at the end of the day, our goal is to help our client find their home. Our goal is to be fairly compensated the work that we have done to help them find their home. But our goal is not to run people away for a half a point or a quarter of a point of compensation, because we know that it's not a one and done. We know that the way we treat them and the way that we take care of them is going to resonate, and it's going to kind of multiply with those other friends and family and coworkers. It's the best feeling in the world when somebody calls you from somebody else that you worked with. It just feeds your spirit and soul of why we do what we do, because we love it and we care. And that is really, really important. So again, this intent is to be clear and transparent, making sure that buyers understand their representation and compensation before the home touring processes begin. They know what the expectations are. We know what the expectations are. We want to set a level playing field for what it is that we're going to be providing to them. Next is section 4.0.1, which is public remarks and showing instructions. Okay. The current requirement is that certain types of information, again, are not permitted anywhere within the MLS remarks or instruction fields. This includes public remarks, public addendum, showing instructions, and agent remarks. Prohibited content includes contact information. Again, these are not issues, but it's important that we talk about it, because if I don't and then you do it, it comes back on me. Contact information, your branding, compensation references, financial incentives, outside of compensation seller incentives that were provided by the sellers when you wrote that listing agreement. Maybe they're offering a $2,500 flooring credit, or maybe they're going to be putting a home warranty. That is different. Financial incentives is almost like you're trying to bribe or convince somebody to see your property before anybody else's. And that's why we don't want to have those things happen. Any security or access information, such as gate codes, alarms, or lockbox details. That's a big no-no. We know that. Somebody didn't know that, okay? If prohibited information is entered into MLS and MLS notifies the agent, corrections must be made within 1 business day, or fines may be applied. The change to the section is not about new prohibited content. It is about where the rule applies. So the prohibition has been expanded beyond just the public remarks. It now applies to multiple MLS fields, including the public remarks, the public addendum, the showing time instructions, the agent-to-agent remarks, and any MLS field visible to other participants or the public that functions as listing instructions or description. So again, just don't be tricky. None of us are that way. Nobody's trying to trick the system. But again, we just want to be open and transparent. So in other words, prohibited information can't simply be moved to a different field to avoid the rule. People can't be tricky. If it's not allowed in the public remarks, it's not allowed anywhere in MLS. The purpose of this change is consistency, safety, and transparency, keeping the MLS information focused on the property itself and preventing compensation or marketing language from being communicated through alternative fields. Section 5.1, no offers of compensation in MLS. We know this, but the current requirement is that MLS may not display offers of compensation in any form. That means compensation cannot appear in listing fields, in remarks, in photos, in associated documents, or anywhere within the MLS. The MLS also may not facilitate compensation offers through data feeds, platforms, or any MLS-supported mechanism. Now, there are significant penalties tied to this rule. A violation carries an immediate fine. A second offense carries a $5,000 fine. And a third and subsequent offense carries a $15,000 fine. So the change in this section expanded the prohibition to include indirect mechanisms. In other words, compensation can't be communicated through alternative MLS fields, data feeds, or systems that are connected to MLS data. Again, the intent is to keep compensation negotiations outside of MLS entirely and ensure that the MLS functions strictly as a property information and cooperation platform, not a compensation marketplace. Sorry, this is 6.3 and 6.4. This is fees, waivers, and fines. So the current requirement is that licensees who are granted a fee waiver may not access MLS services. If a fee waived licensee accesses MLS services or uses MLS data in violation of the waiver, if the violations are not corrected within the time frame, the MLS has the authority to suspend MLS service for the entire office until the issue is resolved. The change in this section is primarily related to enforcement. The language has been strengthened to make it clear that violations can result in broader consequences, including office-level suspension if compliance issues are not corrected. So what is a fee waiver? So for clarification, in South Carolina, fee waivers most commonly apply to active duty military service members who are exempt from certain licensing requirements under state law. These individuals have to submit their orders to South Carolina Department of Licensing or Labor Licensing Regulation to get that waiver, and during the period of service that they may be exempt from continuing education requirements. The other waiver is for some long-term or retired licensees, typically those that have been licensed for more than 25 years and are over the age of 65. They may qualify for continuing education exemptions at renewals, but that doesn't automatically waive MLS fees or grant access without participation requirements. That just means that if that is a route that you're taking and you're over 65 and you've had your license for more than 25 years, you might not be required to take the continuing education every 2 years. But my thought is, why would you want to do that? Because the rules are changing. And if you're going to be active and you're going to be in this market working with clients, I sure as heck want you to know what is going on and how we need to be taking care of them all along the way. Okay, now this was something new to me. And I know I have a couple lock boxes that I have given out, and I have a lockbox that I was borrowing because my lock boxes were out. Okay, so we're going to have to get our lock boxes in check, ladies and gents. The requirement is very straightforward. MLS passwords and lockbox keys are not to be shared with anyone, including other agents, assistants, or non-members. Access to the MLS and lockbox system is assigned to an individual licensee and must remain under that individual's control at all times. The penalties are clearly defined. A first offense carries a $250 fine. A second offense may result in suspension of MLS privileges for up to 6 months at the discretion of MLS. This rule is primarily about security and accountability. Access credentials identify who entered a property or accessed MLS information, and sharing passwords or keys creates both safety and liability concerns. Okay, so I know I have a Brittany lockbox. I've got to get that back. And Megan, you have a lockbox on your property in the cottages, which we'll need to get back as well. Okay, I just want to be transparent. Sometimes there are things that happen, and we just want to make sure that we get it straightened up. Okay, we're almost done. So be happy about that for the changes that have taken place. The next sections are 1.28 and 1.29 are in reference to virtual tours and team rules. Okay, so starting with the virtual tours, the requirement is straightforward. Virtual tours used in the MLS may not contain branding, right? You know that because when we upload those virtual tours, we put them in unbranded virtual tour. There is a section for a branded virtual tour, but this is not that section. So what that means is no agent names, no logos, no contact information, or promotional material can be found within the tour itself. In addition, viewers cannot be required to enter their contact information, such as a name, email address, or phone number, in order to access that tour. The intent is to keep MLS media focused on the property and accessible without lead capture requirements. Again, this is only URLs and tours that you are uploading into your MLS. This doesn't mean that when you're promoting a listing on, Facebook and they have to click to get the address or the information. That's completely different. That is still allowed. Moving on to team rules, there are specific reporting timelines that must be followed. Team formation must be reported to MLS within 3 business days of a team being created. Any changes to the team, including adding or removing members, must also be reported within 3 business days. If a team is not properly established within 10 days of formation, a $500 fine may be assessed to the broker in charge. The purpose of this section is accurate reporting and accountability, ensuring that production listings and team structure are properly reflected within the MLS. Okay, so this is just a summary of the changes. I just want to kind of discuss the key numbers everyone needs to remember. If you remember nothing else from today, remember the timelines, okay? 1 business day, a listing must be entered into MLS after any public marketing. 3 business days, listings must be entered after obtaining seller signatures, and status changes must be updated within that same 3-day business window. 5 business days, closed listings must be reported after closing. 3 business days, a listing must remain active before it can be placed or moved into hold status. 30 days, that is the initial hold limit before approval is required for an extension. 60 days, beyond that point, continued daily fines apply if the listing remains in hold status. 30 days, a listing must be withdrawn for at least that long before it can be relisted as a new listing with a new MLS number. And finally, written agreement is required before showing properties. If you keep these timelines in mind, most MLS violations are avoided before they ever happen. But it's all of the rules because these are just changes, okay? But there are rules that you need to stay engaged with, okay? So before we wrap up, this is just a final item. You are going to be receiving a compliance acknowledgement document following the meeting through dotloop. Okay, that's why I'm showing you how important this is. This document simply confirms that the MLS rule changes have been reviewed and that you have received that updated information. So as MLS rules continue to evolve, brokerages are required to document that training, and we're showing that it's taken place and that the agents have been informed of the changes that affect your daily business practices. So this helps protect you, it helps protect the brokerage, and it ensures that everyone is operating under the same understanding moving forward, right? We all represent each other, so we've got to do it right together. Okay, the document summarizes the key items that we covered today, the timelines, the buyer agreement requirements, the compensation, the MLS usage standards, and signing it, you're acknowledging the receipt and review of the information, not agreeing to anything beyond that, what is already required as part of MLS participation, okay? You're going to receive it in dotloop. Please review it and sign it once received. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you're putting a listing in and you have some questions, let's work through it together, okay? Some cases it's easier to ask for forgiveness, but in this case, there is not going to be forgiveness anymore, okay? So we need to make sure that we are buttoned up with how we're putting things in to make sure that it doesn't cost you money, Okay. Time is money, but money is money. So we just need to be careful and be very intentional with what we're doing. So this is the final thought I'm going to leave you with as we wrap up today. You've heard me say this before: consistency builds credibility, and your credibility is what's going to build your business. So in a market like the one we are in now, clients are paying closer attention. They're asking more questions. They're moving more thoughtfully. And it is that kind of environment that people naturally gravitate toward the professionals who are steady, informed, and consistent in how they show up. You can't just pop up with a post every once in a while. You have to be consistent. You have to show that this is your business, that you are active in it, that you are intentional. Consistency isn't just about production numbers, right? It's about doing the small things right every time, communicating clearly, following the rules, managing expectations, and operating professionally, even and especially when no one is watching. Over time, that is what builds trust. And the trust is what turns those conversations into clients and the clients into long-term relationships. That's really what we want. So the rule changes we talked about today are really just an extension of that idea, right? They're designed to create clarity, professionalism, and transparency in how we all do our business. When we embrace that, it doesn't slow us down. It strengthens our reputation in the marketplace. So consistency builds credibility, and credibility builds business. And that's what positions all of you to continue succeeding in this market moving forward. So I am excited about this year, and I'm ready to see what we're able to do. Thank you.